Richard Cole. A successful architect. Hardworking. Respected. A man who built his life with honest hands and a kind heart. But one day he made a choice that shocked everyone. He pretended to be crippled to discover the truth about his wife. She had promised to love him in sickness and in health. But when she believed he couldn't walk anymore, her real face appeared. Hello friends. Welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? New York? London? Maybe Canada or Jamaica? We want to know. The morning sun lit up the Cole mansion like a palace. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings. Marble floors shone like mirrors. Expensive paintings covered every wall. The house looked like something from a dream. But that morning, Richard Cole felt like the loneliest man in the world. He sat at the long breakfast table, 47 years old, successful, respected. Everyone in the city called him brilliant. Newspapers wrote articles about his beautiful building designs. But he couldn't fix his broken marriage. Does Linda really love me? The question burned in his heart like fire. Linda. His wife of 15 years. Beautiful. Elegant. Once upon a time she had looked at him like he was her whole world. She had promised at their wedding, "I will love you through everything. Rich or poor. Sick or healthy. You are my heart, Richard." And he had believed her. Oh, how badly he had wanted to believe her. But now, everything had changed. Linda barely looked at him anymore. She only smiled when he bought her expensive jewelry or new designer clothes. She spent more time on her phone than talking to him. The warmth was gone. The love felt like ice in winter. Then last night, Richard's world shattered into a million pieces. He had heard Linda on the phone. Her voice was sweet, gentle, happy, emotion she never showed him anymore. "I miss you so much," Linda had said to someone. "You make me feel alive again." Richard's heart had stopped beating. "Don't worry about Richard," she had continued, laughing softly. "He's always busy with his work. You and I can be together soon. I love you too." Those words had cut deeper than any knife. Deeper than any pain he had ever felt. His wife. The woman he trusted with everything. The woman he had given his whole heart to. She was in love with another man. Richard had stayed awake all night, staring at the ceiling, feeling his heart break slowly, piece by piece. This morning, Linda walked into the dining room looking beautiful as always. She wore a bright red dress that fit her perfectly. Diamond earrings sparkled in her ears. Gold bracelets jingled on her wrists. But she didn't even glance at Richard. "Good morning," Richard said softly, trying to smile. Linda replied, her eyes glued to her phone. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, typing something. A small smile played on her lips, the kind of smile she used to give Richard but hadn't in so long. Richard's stomach twisted with pain. Was she texting him? The other man? He tried again. "The weather is beautiful today. Maybe we could spend some time together? We could go to that park you used to love. Remember how we used to have picnics there?" Linda's head snapped up, her eyes flashing with anger. "Why do you always have to control everything I do? I'm busy today. I have plans." "Plans with who?" Richard asked, his voice trembling slightly. "That's none of your business." Linda's voice was sharp, like broken glass. She grabbed her phone and her expensive leather purse. "I need to go." Her high heels echoed loudly as she walked across the marble floor toward the front door. Richard sat alone at the empty table. His heart felt like it was breaking into a million tiny pieces that could never be put back together. The big mansion suddenly felt cold and empty, even though the sun was shining through every window. Grace, their housemaid, walked in quietly carrying a silver coffee pot. Grace was a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She was maybe 25 years old, with her hair tied back neatly. She wore a simple gray dress, her work uniform. Grace had worked for the Cole family for 4 years and had watched the love in this house slowly die, like a flower without water. "Would you like more coffee, Mr. Cole?" Grace asked gently, her voice full of concern. "Yes, thank you, Grace," Richard said quietly. Grace poured the hot coffee carefully into his cup. She noticed his sad eyes, the way his shoulders drooped, how he wasn't eating his breakfast even though she had prepared his favorite, scrambled eggs with cheese and toast with strawberry jam. "Sir, are you feeling okay?" Grace asked softly. Richard tried to smile but couldn't. His face just looked tired and sad. "I'm fine, Grace. Just thinking about some things. If you need anything at all, I'm here," Grace said, and Richard could hear that she really meant it. Richard felt tears forming in his eyes but blinked them away quickly. At least one person in this house still cared about him. At least Grace still treated him with kindness and respect. "Grace," Richard said suddenly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sir." Do you think people can change? Like, completely change who they are inside?" Grace was quiet for a moment, thinking carefully. "I think people show their true selves when times get hard, sir. When everything is easy and comfortable, anyone can be nice. But when life gets difficult, that's when you see who someone really is deep down." Richard looked at her with surprise. This young housemaid spoke such wise words. "Thank you, Grace. That's very true." Grace nodded and left the room quietly, leaving Richard alone with his thoughts and his cold coffee. At 10:30 in the morning, Richard got ready to leave for his meeting with Henry, his best friend and business partner. He put on his jacket and grabbed his car keys. But as he walked through the hallway toward the front door, he heard Linda's voice again. She was upstairs in their bedroom on the phone, laughing. That beautiful, musical laugh he hadn't heard in years. The laugh she used to share only with him. Richard stopped walking. His feet wouldn't move. His heart started beating fast. Thump, 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 like drums in his chest. "I can't wait to see you later today," Linda said warmly into the phone, her voice full of joy and excitement. "These past few weeks with you have been like a beautiful dream." Richard has no idea. He's completely clueless. Richard stopped breathing. He felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. "Once I figure out the right time, I'll leave him," Linda continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Then we can finally be together properly. No more hiding. No more secrets. I love you too." Richard's hands clenched into fists, his fingernails digging into his palms. But not with anger. With heartbreak so deep he could barely stand. His legs felt weak. His whole world was crumbling down. But he didn't confront her. Not yet. He didn't march upstairs and demand the truth. Instead, he quietly left the house, closing the front door softly behind him. 20 minutes later, Richard walked into Henry's office and closed the door behind him. The office was on the top floor of a tall glass building in the city center. Through the windows you could see the whole city, all the buildings that Richard and Henry had helped design together. Henry was sitting at his desk eating a turkey sandwich when he looked up and saw Richard's face. His smile disappeared immediately. "Richard? What's wrong? You look terrible. Like you haven't slept in days." Richard sat down heavily in the chair across from Henry's desk. He felt so tired, like all his energy had drained away. "Linda is cheating on me." Henry's eyes went wide. His sandwich dropped onto his plate. "What? Are you absolutely sure?" "I heard her. Twice now. She's in love with someone else. And she's planning to leave me." Richard's voice was quiet but steady, like he was trying very hard not to cry. Henry stood up quickly and walked around his desk. He put his hand on Richard's shoulder. "Man, I'm so sorry. I can't believe she would do this to you." Richard looked up at his friend, his eyes red and tired. "Henry, I need to know something. Did she ever really love me? Or did she just stay with me for my money? For this comfortable life I gave her? How will you find out?" Henry asked. Richard took a deep breath. His voice became steady and determined, like he had made an important decision. "I'm going to test her. I'll pretend to have a car accident. I'll pretend I can't walk anymore, that I'm crippled and helpless, stuck in a wheelchair. Then I'll see what she does. Will she stay by my side like she promised at our wedding? Or will she abandon me when I need her most?" Henry's mouth fell open. For a moment he couldn't speak. "Richard, that's huge. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," Richard said, his jaw tight with determination. Henry looked at the pain in his friend's eyes. He saw the hurt, the betrayal, but also the strength. Richard needed to know the truth no matter how much it might hurt. Then Henry nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll help you. Whatever you need, brother. I'm with you." "Thank you," Richard said quietly. "This has to look completely real. The accident, the injuries, the doctors, everything. Linda can't suspect anything. We'll make it perfect," Henry promised. "When do you want to do this?" "Soon. Very soon. I can't live like this anymore, not knowing the truth. Not living with someone who doesn't love me." Henry sat down and pulled out a notebook. "All right. Let's plan this carefully. We'll need a doctor we can trust. We'll need to stage the accident scene. We'll need." And so, in that office high above the city, Richard Cole began planning the test that would change his life forever. A test that would reveal the truth about the woman he had loved for 15 years. A test that would show him Linda's real heart, whether it was made of love or just greed and selfishness. Richard didn't know it yet, but what he was about to discover would break his heart even more. But it would also teach him the most important lesson of his life, that true love isn't about money or success or comfort. True love stays strong even when everything falls apart. And sometimes, the people we least expect turn out to be the ones who truly care. For the next 2 days, Richard and Henry worked on the plan like they were designing one of their buildings. Every detail had to be perfect. Henry called his friend, Dr. Marcus, who worked at City General Hospital. Dr. Marcus was a good man, honest and trustworthy. When Henry explained what Richard needed, Dr. Marcus was quiet for a long time. "This is a very serious thing you're asking," Dr. Marcus said over the phone. "Lying about a medical condition." "I know," Henry said. "But Richard needs to know the truth about his wife. She promised to love him in sickness and in health. He just wants to see if she meant it." Dr. Marcus sighed deeply. "All right, I'll help. But only because I understand how important truth is in a marriage. When will this happen?" 3 days from now," Henry said. "On Friday." Richard spent those 2 days acting normal at home, even though his heart was breaking. He smiled at Linda during breakfast even when she ignored him. He asked about her day even when she gave short, annoyed answers. He pretended everything was fine. But inside he was preparing himself for what was coming. On Thursday evening, Richard packed a small suitcase. Linda was in the living room watching TV and painting her nails bright red. "Linda," Richard called out, "I have to go on a business trip tomorrow. I'll be gone for 2 days to meet with clients in the next city." Linda didn't even look away from the TV. "Okay. Have a good trip." "No, be safe." "No, I'll miss you." "No, call me when you get there." "Just, okay." Richard felt the familiar pain in his chest but pushed it down. Soon he thought. Soon I'll know the truth. That night, Richard lay in bed next to Linda. She was asleep, or pretending to be. Richard looked at her face in the darkness. She still looked beautiful, peaceful. He remembered their wedding day, how happy they had been. How she had cried tears of joy when he put the ring on her finger. Where had that woman gone? What had happened to the girl who used to hold his hand and say, "As long as we're together, we can face anything"? Richard closed his eyes and whispered a prayer. "God, please let me be wrong. Please let her still love me." But deep in his heart he already knew the answer. Friday morning came too quickly. Richard got up early, kissed Linda on the forehead, she didn't wake up, and left the house at 6 a.m. Grace was already awake, preparing breakfast in the kitchen. "Mr. Cole? You're leaving so early?" Grace asked with surprise. "Yes, Grace. Business trip. I'll be back in a few days." Grace looked at him carefully. She could see something different in his eyes, determination mixed with sadness. "Sir, please be safe on the road." "I will, Grace. And Grace, thank you for everything you do for this family. You're a blessing." Grace smiled softly. "That's very kind of you, sir. God bless you." Richard drove to Henry's office. Henry was waiting with coffee and the final details of the plan. "Are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" Henry asked one more time. Richard nodded firmly. "I'm sure." "Okay. Here's how it will work. You'll drive your car to the empty road near Miller's Bridge. I'll meet you there with my truck. We'll stage the accident scene, make it look like you lost control and hit the guardrail. Your car will have damage but nothing too serious. Then we'll call the ambulance. Dr. Marcus will be the one who examines you at the hospital." "And the wheelchair?" Richard asked. "Already arranged. Dr. Marcus will tell Linda that the impact damaged your spine, that you can't feel or move your legs, that you'll need months, maybe years of treatment and therapy." Richard took a deep breath. "This is really happening." "It's not too late to change your mind," Henry said gently. "No. I need to know the truth. I can't keep living in doubt and pain." Henry nodded. "Then let's go. I'll follow you in my truck." At 9:15 a.m. Richard's car sat crashed against the guardrail on the empty road near Miller's Bridge. The front bumper was dented. Glass from the broken headlights sparkled on the road. Henry had done a good job making it look real. Richard sat in the driver's seat, waiting. His phone was in his hand, ready to call 911. "This is it," he whispered to himself. "After this call, everything changes." He dialed the number. "Hello? I've been in an accident. I think I'm hurt badly. Please send help." The operator's voice was calm and professional. "What's your location, sir?" Richard gave her the address. "Please hurry. I can't feel my legs." Even though he was pretending, saying those words out loud made Richard's heart race. What if this was real? What would his life be like? The ambulance arrived 12 minutes later, sirens wailing. Paramedics rushed to Richard's car. "Sir, can you hear me? Don't move. We're here to help." They carefully placed a neck brace on Richard and lifted him onto a stretcher. Henry stood nearby watching, his face full of worry, some of it real, some of it acting. "I'm his business partner," Henry told the paramedics. "I was driving behind him when it happened. Is he going to be okay?" "We need to get him to the hospital immediately," one paramedic said. "Sir, can you feel your legs?" Richard looked down at his legs and shook his head slowly. "No, I can't feel anything. Why can't I feel my legs?" He let fear creep into his voice, making it sound real. At the hospital, Dr. Marcus was ready. He examined Richard carefully, asked him questions, did tests. To everyone watching, it looked completely real. After an hour, Dr. Marcus came out to the waiting room where Henry sat. "Are you family?" Dr. Marcus asked. "I'm his best friend and business partner. His wife is on her way." Dr. Marcus nodded seriously. The impact caused damage to his lower spine. He has no feeling or movement in his legs. It's serious." Henry pretended to be shocked, putting his hand over his mouth. "Oh no. Will he walk again?" "It's too early to say. Maybe with therapy and time, but it could be months. Or years. Or..." Dr. Marcus shook his head sadly. "We just don't know." Linda received the call at 10:30 a.m. She was at a cafe having coffee with her friend Sarah, laughing about something on her phone. The hospital's number appeared on her screen. She frowned. Unknown number. "Hello? Mrs. Cole? This is City General Hospital. I'm calling about your husband, Richard Cole." Linda's face changed. Sarah noticed and stopped talking. "What about Richard?" Linda asked. "He's been in a car accident. He's alive, but you need to come to the hospital right away." Linda's hand started shaking. "How bad is it?" "The doctor will explain everything when you get here. Please come as soon as possible." Linda hung up and stared at her phone. Her face had gone pale. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, concerned. "Richard was in an accident. I have to go to the hospital." Linda grabbed her purse and stood up quickly. "Do you want me to come with you?" Sarah offered. "No, I'll be fine." But Linda's voice was shaking. She drove to the hospital, her mind racing. An accident? How bad? What if he's seriously hurt? What? But mixed in with her worry was another feeling, a feeling she tried to push away but couldn't ignore. What if this changes everything? What if he can't work anymore? What if I have to take care of him? Linda shook her head, trying to clear those thoughts. "No, don't think like that. He's your husband. You love him. You have to love him." But did she? Did she really? At the hospital, Linda rushed through the automatic doors, her high heels clicking on the clean white floor. She found the information desk. "My husband, Richard Cole. He was in an accident." "Where is he?" The nurse checked her computer. "Room 304, third floor. Take the elevator." Linda's heart pounded as she rode the elevator up. The doors opened with a ding and she walked down the hallway looking at room numbers. 302, 303, 304. She pushed open the door. Richard lay in the hospital bed, wearing a blue hospital gown. His leg was wrapped in bandages. Machines beeped softly beside him. He looked tired and weak. Henry stood beside the bed. He looked at Linda with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Richard." Linda rushed to the bed. "Oh my God, what happened?" Richard looked at her with sad, tired eyes. "I lost control of the car. I don't really remember. I just remember waking up here and... His voice broke. "Linda, I can't feel my legs." Linda's eyes went wide. "What?" Dr. Marcus entered the room at that moment, holding a clipboard. "Mrs. Cole? I'm Dr. Marcus. I've been treating your husband." "Doctor, what's wrong with him? Why can't he feel his legs?" Dr. Marcus looked very serious. "The accident caused trauma to his lower spine. Right now, Mr. Cole has no sensation or movement from the waist down." The room went completely silent except for the beeping of the machines. "You mean, he's paralyzed?" Linda whispered. "We're running more tests, but yes, at this moment he cannot walk. But he'll get better, right? With treatment?" Linda's voice sounded desperate. Dr. Marcus hesitated. "Spinal injuries are very unpredictable, Mrs. Cole. Some patients recover fully. Others improve partially. And some never regain movement. We'll do everything we can, but I can't make any promises. Could take months or even years of therapy. And there's a chance he may never walk again." Linda stared at the doctor. Her mouth opened but no words came out. She looked at Richard lying in the bed. She looked at his legs under the white blanket. He might never walk again. Richard watched his wife's face carefully, studying every tiny expression. He saw shock, yes. But was that love in her eyes? Or was it something else? Linda? Richard said softly, reaching out his hand. Linda blinked as if waking up from a dream. She took his hand, but her grip was weak, cold. I'm here, she said automatically. But her eyes told a different story. Her eyes were already thinking about what this meant for her life, for her future, for her freedom. Richard saw it all. And his heart, already broken, shattered into even smaller pieces. Richard stayed in the hospital for 3 days. 3 long days where he had to pretend he couldn't move his legs. 3 days where he watched Linda carefully, hoping to see love in her eyes. On the first day, Linda stayed at the hospital for 2 hours. She sat in the chair beside his bed, but she kept checking her phone. Every few minutes, buzz, buzz, a new message would light up her screen. She would read it, smile a little, then quickly hide the smile when she remembered Richard was watching. Who keeps texting you? Richard asked quietly. Linda's head snapped up. Oh, just friends. Everyone's worried about you. They're asking how you're doing. That's nice of them, Richard said, even though his heart told him she was lying. After 2 hours, Linda stood up. I should go home and rest. This has been such a shock. I'll come back tomorrow. Okay, Richard said softly. Linda? Yes. I love you. Linda paused. For just a moment, she looked uncomfortable. Then she forced a smile. I love you too. Get some rest. But the words sounded empty. Like saying, have a nice day to a stranger at the grocery store. After she left, Henry came back into the room. How did it go? Richard stared at the ceiling. She was here for 2 hours. She checked her phone at least 30 times. And when I told her I loved her, his voice cracked. She couldn't even say it back properly. Henry put his hand on Richard's shoulder. Brother, I'm sorry. But at least now you're seeing the truth. The truth hurts, Henry. It hurts so much. On the second day, Linda came to the hospital around noon. She brought flowers, expensive roses in a glass vase. These are beautiful, Richard said, trying to smile. The flower shop lady recommended them, Linda said, setting them on the table without really looking at them. She stayed for only 1 hour that day. She kept yawning, checking her watch, tapping her foot like she wanted to leave. Are you okay? Richard asked. You seem distracted. I'm just tired, Linda said quickly. This whole situation is exhausting, Richard. I barely slept last night. Exhausting, Richard thought. I'm the one who can't walk and she's exhausted. But he said nothing. He just watched and waited. On the third day, Dr. Marcus said Richard could go home. You'll need a wheelchair. And you'll need help with everything, bathing, dressing, moving around the house. Linda's face went pale when the doctor said this. Everything? Yes, Mrs. Cole. Your husband will be completely dependent on care for now. Do you have help at home? We have a housemaid, Grace, Linda said quietly. Good. She'll be very important in the coming weeks. When Richard came home that afternoon, everything felt different. The beautiful mansion that once felt like a palace now felt like a prison. Henry and Dr. Marcus helped Richard out of the medical van and into his wheelchair. It was a sleek black wheelchair, but Richard hated it. Even though he was just pretending, sitting in it made him feel helpless and small. Grace stood at the front door, her hands clasped together, her eyes full of tears. Mr. Cole. Welcome home, sir. I've prepared everything for you. Thank you, Grace, Richard said warmly. At least someone was genuinely happy to see him. Linda stood behind Grace, her arms crossed, watching as Henry pushed Richard up the ramp they had installed at the front entrance. Where should we set up his room? Henry asked. The guest room downstairs, Linda said quickly. The bedroom upstairs is too difficult to reach. Richard's heart sank. She was already moving him out of their bedroom. They wouldn't even sleep in the same room anymore. Henry noticed Richard's sad expression and squeezed his shoulder. It's more practical this way, buddy. Easier for you to move around. But they both knew the real reason. The guest room had been transformed into a hospital room. There was a special bed that could move up and down. A table beside it with medicine bottles. A wheelchair parked in the corner. Grace had even put fresh flowers on the windowsill to make it cheerier. Grace did all this? Richard asked. Yes, sir, Grace said from the doorway. I wanted you to be comfortable. You're an angel, Grace. Thank you. Linda stood in the hallway looking at her phone again. I have a headache. I'm going to lie down upstairs. And just like that, she disappeared. Henry stayed for another hour, helping Richard settle in. When it was time to leave, he leaned close and whispered, Stay strong, brother. The truth is revealing itself. I'll check on you tomorrow. After Henry left, the house became very quiet. Richard sat in his wheelchair in the guest room, looking out the window at the beautiful garden. Birds sang in the trees. The sun was shining. But inside Richard's heart, everything was dark. Grace knocked softly on the door. "Sir, would you like some dinner? I made your favorite, grilled chicken with rice and vegetables." "That sounds wonderful, Grace. But I'm not very hungry." Grace came into the room carrying a tray anyway. "You need to eat to keep your strength up, sir. Please try a little bit." As she set the tray on his lap, Richard looked at her. "Grace, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sir. Why are you so kind to me? You're just the housemaid. You don't have to go beyond your duties." Grace's eyes became soft. "Sir, you've always treated me with respect. From the first day I came to work here, you've been kind. You remembered my birthday. You asked about my family. You treated me like a human being, not just a servant. That means everything to me." Richard felt tears forming in his eyes. "Thank you, Grace. That means more to me than you know. I'll be here whenever you need me, sir. Day or night. I promise." After Grace left, Richard ate a little bit of the food. It was delicious, but he could barely taste it. His mind was too full of sad thoughts. Upstairs, he could hear Linda talking on the phone. Her voice drifted down through the vents. I know. Yes, he's home now. No, I can't come over tonight. It would look bad. I have to at least pretend to care for a few days. I miss you too." Richard closed his eyes and let one single tear roll down his cheek. The test had truly begun. The first week was the hardest. Every morning, Richard would wake up in the guest room alone. He would call out, "Linda? Are you awake?" Sometimes she would answer from upstairs, "Yes, what do you want?" Other times she wouldn't answer at all. Grace became Richard's hands and feet. She would help him wash his face, brush his teeth, get dressed. At first, Richard felt embarrassed. But Grace was so gentle and professional that he soon felt comfortable. "Grace, you don't have to do all this," Richard said one morning as she helped him put on his shirt. "Sir, please don't worry. This is my job and I'm happy to do it. But where is Linda? Shouldn't my wife be helping me?" Grace's face became uncomfortable. She didn't want to speak badly about her employer. "Mrs. Linda is adjusting to the new situation, sir. It's difficult for her." "Difficult for her?" Richard thought bitterly. "I'm the one who can't walk." But he said nothing. He just let Grace finish dressing him. During that first week, Linda would come downstairs maybe once or twice a day. She would stand in the doorway of Richard's room, arms crossed, keeping her distance. "Do you need anything?" she would ask, her voice flat. "Maybe we could talk for a while?" Richard would suggest hopefully. "Keep me company?" "I have things to do, Richard. Grace is here to help you." And she would leave. Richard began to notice a pattern. Whenever Linda did come to see him, she never came close. She never touched him. She never sat on his bed or held his hand. She stood far away like he was contagious with some terrible disease. One afternoon, Richard was trying to reach a book on the shelf beside his bed. The wheelchair was positioned awkwardly and he couldn't quite grasp it. "Linda," he called out. "Could you help me for just a moment?" Linda appeared in the doorway. "What? Could you hand me that blue book? I can't quite reach it." Linda sighed heavily, a long, annoyed sigh that made Richard's heart hurt. She walked over slowly, grabbed the book and practically threw it onto his lap. "There. Anything else?" "Linda, why are you being like this?" "Like what?" "So cold. So distant. I'm your husband. I had an accident. Don't I deserve a little compassion?" Linda's eyes flashed with anger. "Compassion? Richard, do you know how hard this is for me? Do you know what it's like to watch your life fall apart?" "Your life? What about my life? I'm the one who can't walk." "Exactly." Linda's voice rose. "You can't walk. You can't work. You just sit there in that chair all day needing help with everything. I didn't sign up for this." The room went silent. Linda's words hung in the air like poison. Richard stared at her, his mouth open in shock. "You didn't sign up for this? Linda, at our wedding you promised in sickness and in health. Remember?" Linda looked away. "That was different. I didn't know it would be like this. So you only loved me when I was healthy? When I was successful? When I could give you money and a comfortable life?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Your actions say everything." Linda's face turned red. "You know what? I can't do this right now. Grace can take care of you. That's what we pay her for." She stormed out of the room and moments later Richard heard the front door slam. She had left the house. Richard sat in his wheelchair, trembling. not with anger but with deep, crushing sadness. Grace appeared in the doorway, her eyes full of sympathy. "Sir, I'm sorry you had to." "Grace," Richard interrupted gently, "please be honest with me. How much time does Linda spend at home?" Grace hesitated. She didn't want to hurt him more, but she couldn't lie. "Not much, sir. She leaves almost every day. Sometimes she's gone for hours." "Where does she go?" "She says she's meeting friends, going shopping, or going to the spa." "Do you believe her?" Grace looked at the floor. "It's not my place to say, sir." "Grace, please. I need to know the truth." Grace took a deep breath. "No, sir. I don't believe her. Yesterday I answered the house phone. A man's voice asked for her. When I told him she wasn't home, he said, 'Tell her Mark called.' When Mrs. Linda came home and I gave her the message, she got very nervous and went upstairs quickly to call him back." Richard nodded slowly. So the other man's name was Mark. Now he had a name to go with his pain. "Thank you for being honest, Grace." "I'm sorry, sir. I wish I had better news." That night, Richard lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He could hear Linda upstairs in their old bedroom talking on the phone again. Laughing. That beautiful laugh that used to be only for him. He had only been paralyzed for 1 week, and already Linda had completely abandoned him. Already she was back to her secret affair, not even trying to hide it anymore. What will happen in the coming weeks? Richard wondered. How much worse will it get? He was about to find out. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. Then 4. With each passing day, Linda became more careless. More distant. More cruel. She barely came home anymore. Some days Richard wouldn't see her at all. She would leave early in the morning before he woke up and come back late at night after he had gone to bed. Grace became Richard's only companion. She would feed him breakfast, help him exercise his arms to stay strong, read newspapers to him, and keep him company during the long, lonely days. "Grace, you don't have to stay with me all the time," Richard said one afternoon. "You must have other work to do. The house is clean, sir. The laundry is done. I've prepared dinner for later. Right now, my most important job is making sure you're not alone." Richard's eyes filled with tears. "You're too kind, Grace. I don't deserve you. Sir, you deserve so much better than what you're getting." They both knew she was talking about Linda. One Tuesday afternoon, something happened that broke Richard's heart even more. Richard was in the living room in his wheelchair, looking at some architecture magazines that Henry had brought him. He heard the front door open and Linda's voice filled the house. "Come in, come in. Don't be shy." Richard's heart jumped. Was Linda finally bringing friends to visit him? To cheer him up? But when Linda walked into the living room, Richard's heart stopped. She wasn't alone. Behind her was a man Richard had never seen before. He was young, maybe 30 years old. He was tall and muscular, with styled hair and an expensive leather jacket. He had the kind of confident smile that some people found charming but Richard immediately found arrogant. "Richard," Linda said, her voice falsely cheerful. "This is Mark. He's a business consultant helping me with some investments." Mark. So this was him. The man Linda had been talking to on the phone. The man who was stealing his wife. Richard's hands gripped the armrests of his wheelchair tightly. But he kept his face calm. "Hello, Mark. Nice to meet you." Mark walked over and shook Richard's hand. His grip was firm, almost too firm, like he was trying to prove something. "Nice to meet you too, Richard. Sorry to hear about your accident. That must be really tough." But Mark's eyes weren't sorry. They were cold, almost mocking. "Thank you," Richard said quietly. "It's been difficult. Well, hopefully Linda and I can handle the business matters so you don't have to worry about anything," Mark said smoothly. "Just focus on getting better." Linda smiled at Mark, a warm, genuine smile that Richard hadn't seen in months. "Mark has been so helpful. I don't know what I would do without him." Richard felt like someone was stabbing his heart with 1,000 needles. "We'll be in the dining room going over some paperwork," Linda said. "Grace can bring us some coffee." And just like that, they walked away, leaving Richard alone in the living room. For the next 2 hours, Richard could hear them in the dining room. Talking. Laughing. Sometimes their voices would drop to whispers, and then Linda would giggle, that sweet, musical giggle Richard remembered from when they were dating. Grace brought them coffee, then came back to the living room where Richard sat frozen in his wheelchair. "Sir," Grace whispered, her voice full of anger, "this is wrong. This is so wrong. How can she bring that man here? To your own house?" "She thinks I don't know," Richard said quietly. "She thinks I'm just a helpless cripple who doesn't notice anything anymore. But sir, you should." "No, Grace. Not yet. I need to see how far she'll go." I need to see who she really is. From the dining room, more laughter echoed. Richard closed his eyes and took deep breaths, trying to control the pain and anger building inside him. At one point, Richard wheeled himself closer to the dining room. He stayed hidden behind the wall, just listening. "You're so smart," Linda's voice said. "Richard never understood business like you do." "Well, Richard's mind is probably on other things now," Mark said with a slight laugh. "Being in that wheelchair must be limiting." "You have no idea how limiting," Linda said, and Richard could hear the bitterness in her voice. "It's like I'm trapped too. Trapped in this house with—" She didn't finish the sentence, but Richard knew what she was going to say. "Trapped with him." Then Richard heard something that made his blood run cold. The sound of glasses clinking together. "To new beginnings," Mark's voice said. "To freedom," Linda replied. They were toasting. Celebrating. While Richard sat broken in the next room, they were celebrating like they had already won. Richard wheeled himself back to the living room quietly. He didn't want them to know he had been listening. Grace found him there 20 minutes later, tears rolling silently down his face. "Sir," she whispered, kneeling beside his wheelchair. "Oh, sir. I'm so sorry. Grace, I feel like I'm dying inside. I thought I was prepared for this. I thought I could handle seeing the truth. But this is worse than I imagined." Grace pulled a tissue from her pocket and gently wiped his tears. "Sir, you're the strongest man I know. And you know what? God sees everything. Mrs. Linda thinks she's getting away with this, but God is watching. The truth always comes to light." Richard nodded, trying to believe her words. An hour later, Linda walked Mark to the front door. Richard watched from his position in the living room. "Thank you for coming," Linda said sweetly to Mark. "Anytime," Mark replied. Then, right there in the doorway where Richard could see, Mark touched Linda's waist and leaned close to her ear, whispering something. Linda smiled and playfully pushed his shoulder. "Stop it. Not here." But she was laughing, flirting, happy. After Mark left, Linda walked past the living room without even looking at Richard. She went straight upstairs to their old bedroom and closed the door. Richard sat in his wheelchair, his heart completely shattered. The next few weeks were the darkest of Richard's life. Linda stopped pretending completely. Mark became a regular visitor to the house. Sometimes he would come for business meetings. Other times he would come for lunch. Once, Richard even saw Linda and Mark in the garden together, Linda's hand on Mark's arm, both of them laughing like teenagers in love. And Richard had to watch it all from his wheelchair, pretending to be helpless, pretending not to notice. But the worst part wasn't Mark's visits. The worst part was how Linda treated Richard. One morning, Richard was trying to pour himself a glass of water from the pitcher on his bedside table. His hands shook, not because he couldn't do it but because he was so heartbroken that his whole body felt weak. The glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Water and broken glass spread everywhere. "Linda," Richard called out. "I need help. Please." He heard her footsteps coming down the stairs. She appeared in his doorway looking annoyed. "What happened now?" "I dropped my glass. I'm sorry. Could you help me clean it up? I can't reach it from the wheelchair." Linda stared at the mess on the floor. Then she stared at Richard. Her eyes were cold, empty. "Can't you do anything for yourself anymore?" Richard's heart sank. "I'm trying, Linda. But I can't bend down from the wheelchair. I might fall." "Trying?" Linda's voice rose, sharp and cruel. "You've been trying for weeks, Richard. You just sit there like a useless burden. Do you know how exhausting it is to look at you every day?" Richard felt like she had slapped him. "Linda, please. I didn't ask for this accident. I didn't choose to be like this." "Well, I didn't choose it either," Linda shouted. "I didn't marry a cripple, Richard. I married a man who could take care of me, not someone I have to push around like a baby." Tears filled Richard's eyes. "So that's what I am to you now? A burden?" "Yes," Linda screamed. "You want the truth? Fine. Yes, you're a burden. You sit there all day needing help with everything. You can't work. You can't even clean up your own mess. I'm tired, Richard. I'm so tired of this." "Then why are you still here?" Richard asked quietly, his voice breaking. "If I'm such a burden, why don't you just leave?" Linda opened her mouth but closed it again. She couldn't answer that question. Or maybe she didn't want to answer it honestly, that she was staying for his money, for the house, for the comfortable life. "Grace!" Linda yelled. "Grace, come clean this up." Grace rushed in immediately. She looked at the broken glass, then at Richard's tear-filled eyes, then at Linda's angry face. "Yes, ma'am," Grace said quietly. Linda stormed out without another word. Grace knelt down carefully and started picking up the broken glass. "Sir, I'm so sorry you had to hear those words." "She meant every one of them," Richard whispered. "My own wife. The woman I loved for 15 years. She sees me as garbage now." "No, sir. You're not garbage. You're a good man who's being treated terribly by someone who doesn't deserve you." After Grace cleaned up the mess and left, Richard sat alone in his room. For the first time since starting this test, he cried openly. Not silent tears, but deep, painful sobs that shook his whole body. He had his answer. Linda didn't love him. She had probably never really loved him. She loved his money, his success, his ability to provide. But him? The real Richard? She didn't care about him at all. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He could hear Linda upstairs talking on the phone to Mark. "I can't take much more of this," Linda was saying. "He's so pathetic now. Just sitting there looking at me with those sad eyes. I need to get out of this house. I need to be with you." "Soon, baby," Mark's voice said through the phone speaker. Linda had it on loud, not caring if anyone heard. "Just be patient a little longer. Once you figure out the money situation, you can leave him." I know, but it's so hard. I feel like I'm suffocating." Richard lay in his bed downstairs, listening to every word. Each word was like a knife cutting deeper into his heart. But through the pain, Richard felt something else growing. Determination. Strength. Anger, not the explosive kind, but the cold, focused kind that comes from being deeply wronged. Soon, Richard thought. Soon, Linda. Soon you'll see that I was never the weak one. You were. The next morning, Richard made a decision. It was time to start preparing for the final revelation. He couldn't live like this anymore, watching his wife betray him every single day, hearing her cruel words, seeing her with another man. But he needed evidence. Real proof that everyone could see. After Linda left the house that morning, she didn't even say goodbye. Richard called Henry. "Henry, it's time. I need you to hire a private investigator. I need photos, videos, messages, everything. I need proof of what Linda is doing." Henry's voice came through the phone, firm and supportive. "I'm on it, brother. I know the best investigator in the city. He's discreet and thorough. Within 2 weeks, we'll have everything we need." "Thank you, Henry. I don't know what I'd do without you. That's what brothers are for. How are you holding up?" Richard was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I'm broken. But I'm also ready. Ready to end this lie and face the truth whatever it costs me. Stay strong. It's almost over." After hanging up, Richard sat in his wheelchair looking out the window. Grace came in with his breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, and fresh orange juice. "Good morning, sir. How did you sleep?" "Not well, Grace. But that's not your fault." Grace set the tray on his lap and noticed his red, tired eyes. "Sir, you've been crying again." Richard didn't deny it. "Grace, can I tell you something? Something important?" "Of course, sir. You can tell me anything." Richard took a deep breath. He trusted Grace completely. She had been more loyal to him in these past weeks than his own wife had been in years. "Grace, I need to tell you the truth. But you must promise me you won't tell anyone." "Not yet." Grace looked confused but nodded. "I promise, sir." "Grace, I can walk." Grace's eyes went wide. Her mouth dropped open. "What?" "The accident was real, but the paralysis isn't. I've been pretending this whole time. I wanted to test Linda. I wanted to see if she really loved me or if she only loved my money and success." Grace stared at him in shock. Then, slowly, understanding filled her eyes. "You were testing her love." "Oh, sir." "And she failed." "She failed terribly." "Yes," Richard said sadly. "Every day she shows me that she never really loved me. And now I have my answer." Grace sat down in the chair beside him, her hand over her heart. "Sir, I'm so sorry. No one deserves to be treated the way she's treated you. But sir, why are you telling me this now?" "Because you've been so kind to me, Grace. You've cared for me with genuine love and respect. You didn't have to do that. You could have treated me like Linda does, like a burden. But you didn't. And I want you to know that I see you. I appreciate everything you've done." Tears filled Grace's eyes. "Sir, you've always been good to me. From the first day I came to work here, you treated me like a person, not just a servant. You remembered my birthday. You asked about my sick mother. You gave me extra money when I needed it for her medicine. How could I not care for you?" Richard reached out and took Grace's hand. "You have a beautiful heart, Grace. Don't ever let anyone tell you differently." Grace wiped her tears. "So what happens now, sir? When will you reveal the truth?" "Soon. Very soon. Henry is gathering evidence of Linda's affair. When we have everything we need, I'll stand up from this wheelchair and show Linda, and everyone, who she really is. Grace nodded. I'll be there to support you, sir. Whatever you need. Thank you, Grace. Your loyalty means everything to me. Over the next 2 weeks, life in the Cole mansion became even more unbearable. Linda barely came home at all anymore. When she did, she would go straight to her room upstairs without even checking on Richard. Some nights, she wouldn't come home until 2 or 3 in the morning. Richard knew where she was. She was with Mark. Living the life she wanted, pretending Richard didn't exist. But Richard wasn't worried anymore. Henry's private investigator was doing his job. Every meeting between Linda and Mark was being documented. Every text message was being recorded. Every hotel they went to was being photographed. The evidence was piling up, and soon, it would all come crashing down on Linda's head. One afternoon, something happened that showed Richard just how far Linda had fallen. Richard was in the living room when he heard a car pull up outside. He wheeled himself closer to the window and looked out. It was Linda's car. But she wasn't alone. Mark was in the passenger seat. They sat in the car for a few minutes talking and laughing. Then Richard watched as Mark leaned over and kissed Linda. Not a quick kiss. A long, passionate kiss that made Richard's stomach turn. Finally they pulled apart. Linda giggled and touched Mark's face lovingly. Then Mark got out of the car and walked away down the street. Linda came into the house a few minutes later, humming a happy tune. She walked right past the living room where Richard sat, not even noticing him. Richard's hands gripped the wheelchair armrests so tightly his knuckles turned white. He had just watched his wife kiss another man. Right outside his own house. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Grace appeared beside him. She had seen it too from the kitchen window. "Sir," she whispered, her voice full of anger, "this has gone too far. When will you expose her?" "Soon, Grace. Very soon. Henry says the investigator has everything we need. We're planning the confrontation for this weekend." "Good," Grace said firmly. "That woman needs to face what she's done." That evening, something happened that pushed Richard to his absolute limit. It was around 7 o'clock. Grace had prepared a beautiful dinner, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. She brought a plate to Richard in his room. "Grace, this smells wonderful." "Thank you." "You're welcome, sir. I'll bring Mrs. Linda her dinner now." "Is she home?" "Yes, sir. She came back about an hour ago. She's upstairs in her room." Grace went upstairs with Linda's dinner tray. A few minutes later, Richard heard shouting. "I said I'm not hungry." Linda's voice screamed. "Take it away." "But ma'am, you need to eat something." "You've been?" "I don't care what you think I need. Get out of my room." Richard heard footsteps, and then Grace came back downstairs carrying the full tray. Her hands were shaking and there were tears in her eyes. "Grace? What happened?" Grace set the tray down and wiped her eyes. She threw her shoe at me, sir. She said she didn't want dinner and told me to get out." Anger exploded in Richard's chest. "She threw a shoe at you?" "It's okay, sir. It didn't hit me. I'm fine." "No, Grace. It's not okay. It's not okay at all." Richard was about to call out to Linda when he heard her on the phone again. Her voice drifted down from upstairs, loud and careless. "Mark, baby, I'm so sorry I'm stuck here tonight. I told my friends I would meet them for dinner, but I couldn't think of a good excuse to leave." "What? You want me to come anyway?" "But what about Richard?" "Oh, you're right. He won't even notice if I'm gone. He's useless anyway." Okay. Give me 20 minutes. I'll be there." Richard heard movement upstairs. Linda was getting ready to go out. 10 minutes later, Linda came down the stairs wearing a tight red dress and high heels. She had put on makeup and perfume. She looked beautiful, dressed up for another man. She grabbed her purse and car keys from the hall table. "Linda," Richard called out from his room. "Where are you going?" Linda appeared in his doorway, looking annoyed that he had even spoken to her. "Out. I have dinner plans." "With who?" "Friends. Not that it's any of your business." "Linda, we need to talk. About us. About our marriage." Linda laughed, a cold, harsh laugh. "Talk? Richard, what is there to talk about? Look at you. You sit there in that wheelchair day after day doing nothing. You can't work. You can't provide. You can't even take care of yourself. What kind of marriage is this?" "Linda, I'm your husband. I had an accident. The vows we took said in sickness and in health." "Oh, spare me the vows." Linda shouted. "You know what? I'm tired of pretending. Yes, Richard. Yes, I'm unhappy. Yes, I wish things were different. Is that what you want to hear?" "I want to hear the truth, Linda. Do you still love me?" The room went completely silent. Linda stared at Richard. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Maybe guilt, maybe pity. But then her face hardened again. Love you? Linda said quietly, cruelly. Richard, I don't even like looking at you anymore. The words hit Richard like a physical blow. Even though he had known the truth for weeks, hearing her say it out loud still hurt more than anything. Then why are you still here? Richard asked, his voice barely a whisper. Linda's eyes narrowed. Because this is my house too. Because I deserve something after 15 years of marriage. Because, she stopped herself, realizing she was about to say too much. Because of the money, Richard finished for her. Because if you leave now, you'll walk away with nothing. But if you stay, you can file for divorce later and take half of everything I own. Isn't that right? Linda's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I'm not as stupid as you think I am, Linda. Linda's jaw clenched. Think whatever you want. I don't care anymore. I'm leaving. She turned and walked toward the front door. Linda, Richard called out one more time. When you walk out that door, remember that choices have consequences. One day the truth will come out. And when it does, you'll have to face what you've done. Linda paused at the door. For just a second she looked back at him. Then she shook her head and left, slamming the door behind her. Richard sat alone in his wheelchair, his whole body trembling, not with sadness anymore but with anger and determination. Grace rushed into the room. Sir, are you okay? Grace, Richard said, his voice strong and clear, call Henry. Tell him it's time. We're doing the confrontation this weekend. I'm done living this lie. Grace nodded firmly. Yes, sir. It's time for the truth. That night, Richard called Henry and told him everything that had happened. The shoe throwing. Linda's cruel words. Her complete lack of care or love. Henry, I want everyone there this weekend. You, Dr. Marcus, the lawyer, and anyone else who needs to see the truth. I'm going to stand up from this wheelchair and show Linda exactly who she married, and who she became. Henry's voice was full of support. I'll arrange everything, brother. This Saturday. 2 days from now. We'll gather everyone at your house. And Richard. Yes. You're doing the right thing. Linda has shown her true colors. Now it's time for everyone else to see them too. Friday morning arrived. Tomorrow would be the day of truth. Tomorrow Richard would stand up from his wheelchair and reveal everything. But first he had to make it through one more day of pretending. Linda came home at 4 in the morning. Richard heard her stumbling up the stairs, giggling to herself. She was drunk. She had spent the whole night with Mark, not caring that she had a husband at home. Richard didn't sleep at all that night. He just lay in his bed thinking about tomorrow. Thinking about what he would say. Thinking about how Linda would react when she realized she had been caught. In the morning, Henry came over to help finalize the plans. He brought a folder full of evidence. Photos, text messages, hotel receipts. Everything the private investigator had gathered over the past 2 weeks. Richard and Henry sat in Richard's room looking through the evidence. Grace brought them coffee and closed the door to give them privacy. Look at this, Henry said, showing Richard a photo. It was Linda and Mark at a fancy restaurant, holding hands across the table. This was taken on Tuesday night. She told you she was visiting her mother, remember? I remember, Richard said quietly, staring at the photo. Henry showed him another photo. Linda and Mark kissing outside a hotel. Another photo of them going into a hotel room together. Text messages where Linda called Mark, my love, and my future. Richard's hands shook as he looked through the evidence. Even though he knew what Linda was doing, seeing the proof in black and white made it real in a painful way. This is enough, Richard said finally. More than enough. Tomorrow, everyone will see who Linda really is. Who's coming tomorrow? Henry asked. You, Dr. Marcus, my lawyer Mr. Patterson, and a few close friends who need to know the truth. I want witnesses. I want people to see everything. What about Linda? Does she know people are coming? No. I'll tell her this afternoon that I need to have a family meeting about my medical care. She won't suspect anything. Henry nodded. And Grace? She knows what's happening? Yes. Grace has been my rock through all of this. She deserves to see justice happen. Richard, Henry said seriously, are you ready for this? Once you stand up from that wheelchair, there's no going back. Your marriage will be over. Everything will change. Richard looked at his best friend with clear, determined eyes. My marriage was over the moment Linda stopped loving me. Maybe it was over long before that. Tomorrow, I'm not ending my marriage. I'm just finally admitting that it's already dead. That afternoon, Linda came downstairs around 2 o'clock. She looked tired, her makeup smudged from the night before. She went to the kitchen and made herself coffee, ignoring Richard completely. "Linda," Richard called out from the living room, "can you come here for a moment?" Linda sighed heavily but walked into the living room, coffee cup in hand. "What?" "I need to have a family meeting tomorrow. About my medical situation and future care. Henry will be here and Dr. Marcus and my lawyer. I thought you should know." Linda's face showed a flicker of interest when he mentioned the lawyer. "Your lawyer? Why?" "We need to discuss medical power of attorney, financial arrangements in case I don't get better, things like that. Legal stuff." Linda nodded slowly. Richard could see her mind working, probably thinking about the money. "What time?" 2 o'clock in the afternoon. "Please be here. It's important." "Fine. I'll be here." She started to walk away, then stopped and turned back. "Richard, after this meeting, we need to talk. About us. About the future." Richard's heart clenched. "What do you mean?" Linda looked uncomfortable. I don't think I can do this anymore. This life. Taking care of you. I think maybe we need to discuss other arrangements." "You mean divorce?" Richard said quietly. Linda didn't deny it. "I mean, we need to talk about what's best for both of us. You need professional care, Richard. Not a wife who..." She trailed off. "Not a wife who doesn't love me anymore?" Richard finished. Linda looked away. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." Linda turned and walked upstairs without another word. Richard sat in his wheelchair, a small, sad smile on his face. So Linda was planning to ask for a divorce. She was going to make it seem like she was doing him a favor, like she was setting him free. But really, she just wanted to take her half of his money and run away with Mark. Tomorrow, Richard thought. Tomorrow everyone will see the truth. That evening, Grace helped Richard prepare for bed. As she arranged his pillows and made sure his water glass was full, she looked at him with concern. "Sir, are you nervous about tomorrow?" "Nervous? Yes. But also ready. Grace, I've been living a lie for weeks now. Tomorrow I finally get to tell the truth. That feels freeing." "What do you think Mrs. Linda will do when she finds out?" "I don't know. She might cry. She might get angry. She might try to make excuses. But it won't matter. Everyone will see the evidence. Everyone will know what she did." Grace nodded. "Sir, can I tell you something?" "Of course. I'm proud of you. I know that might sound strange coming from me, but I'm proud of how you handled this. You could have confronted her immediately, screamed and fought. But instead you gave her a chance to show her true heart. And now everyone will see what kind of person she really is." Richard felt tears forming. "Thank you, Grace. That means more to me than you know. And sir? No matter what happens tomorrow, remember that you're not alone. You have Henry. You have Dr. Marcus. You have friends who care about you. And you have me. We all see the good man you are." Richard reached out and squeezed Grace's hand. "What would I do without you, Grace?" "You'll never have to find out, sir. I'm not going anywhere." Saturday morning. The day of truth. Richard woke up early, his heart pounding. This was it. Today he would stand up. Today everyone would see. Grace brought him breakfast, but he could barely eat. His stomach was full of butterflies. "The guests will arrive at 2 o'clock, Grace reminded him. "Mrs. Linda is still upstairs. She's been on the phone all morning. Probably talking to Mark," Richard said. "Probably making plans for their future together." At noon, Linda came downstairs wearing an elegant black dress. She had done her hair and makeup carefully. She wanted to look good for the lawyer, Richard realized. She wanted to look like the suffering, devoted wife. "I'm going out for a quick lunch," Linda announced. "I'll be back before 2. "Where are you going?" Richard asked. "Just the cafe down the street. I need some fresh air before this meeting." But Richard knew better. She was meeting Mark. Having one last meeting with him before facing the boring family meeting. After Linda left, Henry arrived to help Richard get ready. "How are you feeling, brother?" Henry asked. "Like I'm about to jump off a cliff. But it's a jump I need to make." Henry smiled. "I've got your back. We all do." At 1:45 p.m., the guests started arriving. Dr. Marcus came first, dressed in a nice suit. Then came Mr. Patterson, Richard's lawyer, carrying a briefcase. Then came 3 more friends, business associates who Richard trusted and respected. Grace showed them all into the living room. She had arranged chairs in a semicircle, with Richard's wheelchair at the center. It looked like a courtroom. "Thank you all for coming," Richard said as everyone took their seats. "What you're about to see today will shock you. But I need you all to be witnesses to the truth." At exactly 2 o'clock, Linda's car pulled into the driveway. Richard heard her high heels clicking as she walked up to the front door and came inside. She walked into the living room and stopped when she saw all the people. "Oh, everyone's already here." "Yes," Richard said calmly. "Please, Linda. Sit down." Linda looked confused but sat in the empty chair that Grace had placed near the door. She looked at all the serious faces around the room. "Why does everyone look so formal?" "Because this is a formal meeting," Richard said. "Linda, I want to talk to you about our marriage." Linda's face went pale. "Richard, maybe we should discuss this privately?" "No," Richard interrupted. "I want everyone here to hear this. I want witnesses." Henry pulled out the folder of evidence and placed it on the coffee table. Linda saw it and her eyes went wide. "What is that?" "That," Richard said quietly, "is the truth." The room was completely silent. Everyone stared at the folder on the coffee table. Linda's face had turned white as a sheet. "Richard, what are you talking about?" Linda's voice trembled. "What truth?" Richard looked around the room at all the faces watching. Henry sat ready to support him. Dr. Marcus looked serious and professional. Mr. Patterson, the lawyer, had his notebook open. The three business friends leaned forward with curiosity. Grace stood in the corner, her hands clasped together. Richard took a deep breath. This was the moment he had been waiting for. "Linda," Richard began, his voice steady and strong, "6 weeks ago I had a car accident. Or at least that's what everyone thought." Linda frowned, confused. "What do you mean, that's what everyone thought?" "You did have an accident. You're in a wheelchair." "Am I?" Richard asked quietly. The room went deadly silent. "What?" Linda whispered. Richard looked directly into his wife's eyes. "Linda, there was an accident. My car did crash. But I was never hurt. I was never paralyzed. I could walk the entire time." Linda's mouth dropped open. That's not possible," the doctor said. "The doctor said what I asked him to say," Richard interrupted. He looked at Dr. Marcus, who nodded solemnly. "Dr. Marcus is my friend. He agreed to help me with something very important. A test." "A test." Linda's voice rose. "What kind of test?" "A test of love," Richard said simply. "I wanted to know if you truly loved me, Linda. I wanted to know if you would stay by my side in sickness, like you promised at our wedding. Or if you only loved me for my money and success." Linda stood up from her chair, her face turning red. "Richard, this is crazy. You're saying you've been lying this whole time? Pretending to be crippled?" "Yes," Richard said firmly. "And you failed the test, Linda. You failed miserably." "Failed?" Linda shouted. "How dare you? I've been here, haven't I? I stayed." Henry spoke up, his voice cold. "You stayed in the house, Linda. But you weren't there for Richard. Not once." Richard nodded. "On the first day I came home from the hospital, you moved me into the guest room. You didn't want me in our bedroom anymore. You barely visited me. You spent hours away from home every day. And when you were home, you treated me like I was garbage." "That's not true." Linda protested, but her voice wasn't convincing. "Isn't it?" Richard asked. "Grace, can you tell everyone what happened with the water glass?" Grace stepped forward, her voice quiet but clear. Mrs. Linda called Mr. Richard a burden. She said she didn't marry a cripple. She said it was exhausting to look at him every day. The guests in the room gasped. Some shook their heads in disgust. Linda's face went even redder. "I was upset. I was stressed. You can't use words I said in anger against me. Those words showed your true feelings," Richard said. "But words weren't the only thing, Linda." He nodded at Henry. Henry opened the folder and pulled out a photograph. He held it up for everyone to see. It showed Linda and a young man holding hands at a restaurant. "Who is that, Linda?" Richard asked. Linda's face lost all its color. Her lips trembled. That's just a friend. A business consultant." Henry pulled out another photo. This one showed Linda and the same man kissing outside a hotel. "Is that how you treat business consultants?" Henry asked coldly. Linda's legs seemed to give out. She sat back down in her chair, her whole body shaking. "His name is Mark," Richard said, his voice filled with pain but also strength. "You've been having an affair with him for months, haven't you, Linda?" "No. I mean, it's not what it looks like." Linda stammered. Mr. Patterson, the lawyer, pulled out more papers from the folder. "We have text messages, Mrs. Cole. Messages where you call Mark, my love, and my future. Messages where you discuss leaving your husband once you figure out the money situation." The lawyer read one message aloud. I can't wait to be free of Richard. Once I get my share of everything, we can finally be together properly." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. People shook their heads. Some looked at Linda with pure disgust. Linda's face was now red and blotchy. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Richard, please. Let me explain." "Explain what?" Richard asked, his voice breaking slightly. "Explain how you brought your lover into my house? Explain how you kissed him in our driveway? Explain how you laughed with him while I sat alone in my room? I was lonely," Linda cried. "You were always working. You never paid attention to me anymore. So your solution was to cheat on me?" Richard asked. "And when I had an accident, when I needed you most, you abandoned me completely. You called me a burden. You said you didn't even like looking at me. You told me you didn't marry a cripple." Everyone in the room stared at Linda with shock and disappointment. Grace spoke up again, her voice stronger now. "Mrs. Linda also threw a shoe at me when I tried to bring her dinner. She treated everyone in this house with cruelty. You were supposed to love me in sickness and in health," Richard continued. "But the moment you thought I couldn't walk, the moment you thought I couldn't provide for you anymore, you showed your true colors. You didn't love me, Linda. You loved my money. You loved the comfortable life I gave you. But me? The real me? You never loved me at all." Linda was sobbing now, her makeup running down her face. "Richard, please. I made mistakes. I'm sorry. I was confused and scared, And now," Richard said, cutting her off, "I'm going to show you something." The room went completely silent again. Everyone held their breath. Richard placed his hands on the armrests of his wheelchair. Linda watched him, confused about what he was doing. Then, slowly, Richard pushed himself up. He stood. He stood on his own 2 feet, strong and steady. Linda's crying stopped. Her mouth fell open in complete shock. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not possible." "Yes," Richard said, standing tall before everyone. "I could walk this whole time. Every single day that you ignored me, every cruel word you said, every moment you spent with Mark, I could have stood up and confronted you. But I didn't. I wanted to see the truth. I wanted to see who you really were when you thought I was weak and helpless." He took a step forward. Then another step. He walked across the room, his legs strong and sure. He had been exercising in secret, keeping his muscles strong. The guests began to clap softly. Some wiped tears from their eyes, tears of joy for Richard and sadness for what he had endured. Linda sat frozen in her chair, staring at Richard standing before her. You've been lying this whole time?" "I was testing you," Richard corrected. "And you failed in every possible way." Linda's shock turned to anger. She stood up, her face twisted with rage. "How dare you? How dare you trick me like this? You made me look like a fool." "No, Linda," Richard said firmly. "You made yourself look like a fool. I gave you a chance to show love, compassion, and loyalty. You chose betrayal, cruelty, and selfishness instead. This isn't fair." Linda screamed. "You can't do this to me." Mr. Patterson stood up, his briefcase in hand. "Mrs. Cole, I'm Mr. Richard Cole's attorney. I'm here to inform you that Mr. Cole is filing for divorce on the grounds of adultery and abandonment. We have more than enough evidence to ensure that you will not receive any significant portion of his assets." Linda's face went white again. "What? No, you can't do that. I'm entitled to half of everything." "You're entitled to nothing," Mr. Patterson said coldly. "You violated your marriage vows. You committed adultery. You emotionally abused your husband during what you believed was his time of greatest need. No judge in this country will give you half of anything." Linda looked around the room desperately, looking for someone to support her. But everyone looked back at her with disappointment and disgust. "Please," Linda begged, turning back to Richard. "Please, Richard. I'm sorry. I made mistakes. I was weak. But we can work through this. 15 years of marriage has to mean something." Richard looked at her sadly. "You're right. 15 years should mean something. But Linda, you threw it all away. You threw it away the moment you decided another man was more important than your husband. You threw it away the moment you called me a burden. You threw it away the moment you chose money over love." The lawyer pulled out more papers. "Mrs. Cole, you have 2 choices. You can sign these divorce papers now and leave with your personal belongings. Or we can take this to court, where all of this evidence will be made public. Everyone will know what you did. Your friends, your family, everyone." Linda looked at the papers with horror. "If I sign, what do I get?" "Nothing," Mr. Patterson said simply. "You committed adultery. You abandoned your husband in his time of need. You get nothing." "But I have nowhere to go," Linda cried. You should have thought of that before you betrayed your husband, Henry said coldly. Maybe Mark will take you in. Oh wait, Henry pulled out his phone and showed Linda a picture. It was Mark with another woman kissing her. This was taken yesterday. Looks like Mark has been seeing someone else too. Guess you weren't as special as you thought. Linda stared at the photo, her face crumbling. The man she had betrayed her husband for, the man she thought loved her, had been using her just like she had been using Richard. He said he loved me, Linda whispered. He lied, Henry said simply. Just like you lied to Richard. Linda sat there, broken and defeated. After a long moment, she reached out with a shaking hand. Give me the papers. Mr. Patterson handed her the divorce documents. Linda signed them, her tears falling onto the paper and smudging the ink. You have 1 week to move out of this house, Mr. Patterson said. Take only your personal belongings. Everything else stays. Linda stood up slowly, looking around the room one last time. Her eyes landed on Richard, who stood tall and strong, surrounded by people who truly cared about him. Richard, Linda said quietly, I really am sorry. I know you won't believe me, but I am. Richard looked at her with sadness but no anger. Linda, I believe you're sorry. But you're sorry you got caught, not sorry for what you did. There's a difference. Linda had no response to that. She walked slowly to the door, her head down, her shoulders slumped. At the doorway she turned back one last time. I hope you find happiness, Richard. Real happiness. You deserve it. Then she was gone. The door closed behind her and the house felt lighter somehow. Like a dark cloud had finally lifted. The guests came up to Richard one by one, shaking his hand, hugging him, telling him how proud they were of his strength. You did the right thing, brother, Henry said, gripping Richard's shoulder. That took real courage. Dr. Marcus nodded. Most men would have confronted her immediately in anger. But you were patient. You let the truth reveal itself naturally. That's wisdom. After all the guests left, Richard and Grace stood in the quiet living room. The wheelchair sat empty in the corner, a reminder of the test that had changed everything. Sir, Grace said softly, what will you do now? Richard walked to the window and looked out at the garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in beautiful colors of orange and pink. I'm going to live, Grace. Really live. I'm going to appreciate the people who truly care about me. I'm going to focus on my work, my friendships, the things that matter. And I'm going to remember the lesson this test taught me. What lesson is that, sir? Richard turned and smiled at her. That true love isn't tested by the good times. Anyone can love you when everything is perfect. True love is tested by the hard times. True love stays strong when everything falls apart. And true loyalty, like yours, Grace, is more valuable than all the money in the world. Grace smiled through her tears. That's beautiful, sir. And Grace? Stop calling me sir. My name is Richard. We're friends now, not just employer and employee. Grace's smile grew wider. Okay. Richard. 6 months passed like a beautiful dream. Linda moved back to her parents' small apartment across town. Her friends abandoned her when they learned what she had done. Mark disappeared completely, refusing to answer her calls. She had to get a job at a clothing store to pay for her expenses. The comfortable life she had taken for granted was gone forever. Meanwhile, Richard's life blossomed. He threw himself back into his work with renewed energy. He designed 3 new buildings that became the talk of the city. His business with Henry grew stronger than ever. Richard even started teaching architecture classes at the local university, sharing his knowledge with young students who looked up to him. Grace continued to work for Richard, but now she was more than a housemaid. Richard promoted her to be his personal assistant, helping him manage his schedule and business affairs. With the $50,000 Richard had given her, Grace paid for her mother's operation. Her mother made a full recovery and even came to work part-time in Richard's office, managing the reception desk. Richard, Grace's mother said one day, tears in her eyes, thank you for saving my life. Thank you for seeing the goodness in my daughter when others overlooked her. Your daughter saved me too, Richard replied warmly. She reminded me what real kindness looks like. The Cole mansion was filled with laughter again. Richard invited friends over for dinners. He hosted charity events to help people in need. He even adopted a dog, a golden retriever named Hope, who followed him everywhere. One Saturday afternoon, Richard and Henry sat in Richard's study, drinking coffee and talking about their latest project. You know, Henry said, 6 months ago I was worried about you. I thought this whole test thing might break you. But look at you now. You're happier than I've seen you in years. Richard smiled. I'm happy, Henry. Losing Linda hurt, but it also freed me. I was living with someone who didn't love me, pretending everything was fine. Now I'm living honestly, surrounded by people who actually care. Have you heard anything about Linda? Henry asked carefully. I heard she's working at a store downtown. I also heard that Mark got married to someone else. Linda must be heartbroken. Do you feel sorry for her? Richard thought about that for a moment. A part of me does feel sorry for her. She threw away something real for something fake. She traded love for money and ended up with neither. But mostly I feel grateful. Grateful? Henry looked surprised. Yes. Grateful that I discovered the truth before wasting more years with someone who didn't value me. Grateful for friends like you who stood by me. Grateful for Grace and her loyalty. Grateful for this second chance at life. Henry raised his coffee cup. To second chances. Richard clinked his cup against Henry's. To second chances and new beginnings. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.